Peace and black power to the family. Wukusu. As you all know, that's our greeting at Harlem Liberation School, acronym for Wake Up, Clean Up, and Stand Up, which we attribute to Brother Malcolm, it being his three-part call to action. What should black people do? Malcolm wasn't one to beat around the bush and give long dissertations. He said, wake up, clean up, and stand up. Wake up meaning to develop our nationalist Pan-African consciousness. Clean up meaning to be self-corrective, right? Not to be pointing fingers at everybody else. What are we doing that's getting that self-defeating behavior or thinking as he did in his life? And finally, stand up, meaning to exert leadership in our community, to be agents of black resistance, right? To build, not just to fight white folk and white supremacy, but to fight for black people. So this involves building those independent institutions, creating alternative schools and school systems, alternative paradigms, right? That's from Brother Malcolm. So Wukusu to the family. Family, I have a quick announcement that I have to make. I want to just bring this image in real quick. Give me 1 second to bring this in because I want to talk about a brother, something that this brother is doing that I think many of us could benefit from. All right. I'm going to put this graphic up. Let me get it out. Hold on. The screen. We have a brother named Baba Afam. You may remember he is the brother that found out that he had lineage in Sierra Leone and was raising money to go there for their official, I guess you call it citizenship sort of program and orientation. He also, though, is the founder of SBET, Strategic Black Empowerment Training. And what they do is spread the teachings of the Honorable Dr. Amos Wilson. So this brother that I'm going to be talking about, he's sponsoring this episode. He is a master martial artist. He's a master healer. He does a form of Reiki, Qigong, massage therapy, and all of that in his place in Brooklyn. So for my New York City viewers, he has a holiday special. If you don't see the graphic, if you go to the description section of this video, there's a link that will take you right there. I encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity. Why? Well, this isn't just on some bourgeois type of thing, family. This is those of us particularly who we work in, we involved in our families, we in relationships, we doing stuff for the people, nation building work, community servant work. We get tired and we get worn down. Some of us get burned out, and we really need to focus on self-care, but not so much in the frivolous part of it, but like restorative. We need to heal. So the brother's offering some relaxation services. He's qualified and licensed to do it. Support our brother. Please check out the link in this description section. If you're in New York City, man, take advantage of the discount that the brother's offering. And let's grow together and let's help each other grow. That said, fam, you know, I don't mean to brag on Harlem Liberation School, family, but I got to tell you, throughout these years, we've been bringing, since 2016, we've been bringing you some of our best, brightest, hardest working, most creative and innovative warriors for Black liberation, coming out of the Black nationalists and Pan-African expressions of our people. I'm proud to say that. And not frivolous stuff, not sideline circus acts, real quality people. Today is no exception. We got a brother today that I've been hearing about for more than 20 years from my good brother and colleague, Brother Scott Brown over at UCLA. Baba Kabaila Simba. Let me talk about him before we bring him on. This brother has done so much and is still doing so much. He's the former vice chair of the US organization. And US does not mean United Slaves, family. Us means the pronoun, collective pronoun, like us versus them, right? And you know that US is the founding organization of the Pan-African holiday we call Kwanzaa, which now is probably over 45 million people celebrating that worldwide, right? He's also, though, the founder and the presiding elder of the National Black Council of Elders. I'm going to ask him a little bit about that later in the broadcast. And family, he's the chief, and I may be mispronouncing it. I will ask him when we bring him on, the Bakhalokoe nation of Southern Africa. This brother got a resume now and a pedigree that we're going to be getting into it. And he's so important to us because one of the things we want to talk about as we enter Kwanzaa season is to make sure that we understand what it's about, the spirit in which it was created, what was going on at the time, and that it is much more than a holiday and it's much more than a 7-day celebration. I don't know if too many people are more qualified to speak to that than our good brother, Baba Kabaila. I'm going to bring him in. Take this out. And there's my brother. Hold on 1 second, fam. We got a little bit of...
just driving mistakes.
There we go. Baba, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm glad to see you, and I'm glad that you have given us some of your time. I guess we'll get right into it. And I guess the first thing I want to ask you is that both the US organization and Kwanzaa did not exist in a vacuum, as you know, but they emerged from a movement, the Black Power movement, also kind of the Black Arts movement, which, and in this case, the US organization represents, many of us would say, the cultural nationalist expression of Black Power. But because there's an attack on nationalism of all stripes, revolutionary, cultural, whatever, people have reduced the US organization and to being like, all they do is change their names to African names and wear African clothes. Could you please give all of our viewers a much more in-depth understanding of cultural nationalism as it relates to Black liberation?
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to. And it's good to be on your show. And I've also likewise heard a lot about you over the years. Also, I'm also a son of Harlem, 158th Street in Amsterdam.
Hey, you right in the neighborhood. I was on 143rd between Amsterdam and Broadway.
Yes, sir. And so good to be on your show and for us to be able to have this exchange with your audience. Your question relating to cultural nationalism, its origin, and the importance of cultural nationalism within the Pan-African framework. Your grad student and college student. In 1960, when John Kennedy was elected president, he opened up many of the universities which heretofore were resistant about letting Black students into graduate school. And when Kennedy came in, they opened it up. And there was a brother in the San Francisco Bay Area. His name is Donald Warden. He immediately started an organization called the Afro-American Association, AAA. And and what he did, he first invited Phi Beta Kappa Black students in because he wanted to kind of give them an orientation as they were entering college. He wanted to give them an orientation in terms of how they should utilize their education for the benefit of the community. And so he had people like Maulana Karenga, Huey Newton, David Hilliard, Brother Lee Cherry, who recently passed away a couple of years ago, who became the chair of the African Scientific Institute, Mamadou Lumumba, and some of you know his brother. He's over the Council of Elders in the DC area. But there were a number of students that came into the Afro-American Association. And what happened eventually, Brother Donald had a newscast, and he broadcasted nationally. So he had, over the period of time, he had like 5,000 people in his organization. And of course, when the 1965 revolts hit in Los Angeles, immediately after, Maulana Karenga organized. In fact, the next month, the revolt was in August, and the next month, on September 7th, Maulana Karenga organized the US organization. And a year after that, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale organized the Black Panther Party in Northern California. And just by way of, and the reason I say I'm throwing out nuggets is because a lot of this information you're not going to find, you're not going to be able to Google it, because a lot of this information about the Afro-American Association is very hard to find, if it exists at all. But Maulana Karenga was the chair of the Southern California chapter of the Afro-American Association, and Huey Newton was the chair of the Northern California section. And so they would meet up on a regular basis. In fact, my good friend Ayuku Babu, who's over the Pan-African Festival, relayed to us that when he came out here from Cheyenne, Wyoming, to Los Angeles, he was about to join a fraternity, and somebody, told him about these brothers who were traveling back and forth up and down the coast in this organization called the Afro-American Association. And he said, man, I want to do what them brothers are doing. He said, they were some heavy brothers if they can travel back and forth having meetings, about organizing the community. And so that's how he got involved in community politics, instead of going into the fraternities. But I just want to just mention that because that's a very important history. And the Afro-American Association, as you can see by the people who were involved in it, that it was a format for young brothers and sisters who, like I said, were going into college, into the university systems, which heretofore they hadn't been able to go into. It was a chance for them to come together and begin to organize together. And initially, for whatever is said about, us and the Panthers, initially we had a very good relationship with the Panthers because of the relationship that Huey and Karenga had in the beginning. And like I said, they would meet on a regular basis. The other important thing that I want to mention, since we're here to talk about Kwanzaa, is that the initial conversation about Kwanzaa actually started in the Afro-American Association. It wasn't called Kwanzaa at that time, but there was a lot of conversation about the need to have our own holiday or have our own day that we could utilize in terms of celebrating ourselves as a people and as a community. And so that conversation actually started within the context and confines of the Afro-American Association. Eventually, because whenever Malcolm would come out to the West Coast, invariably he would always, meet with Karenga. And so there was conversation between them. I don't know who influenced who in terms of the principles, but of course, as we know now, the day that Malcolm was assassinated, he had prepared his speech, and he had a section in his speech that he was focusing on developing a cultural nationalist movement. So I don't know to what extent, like I said, who was more influential over who in that relationship, but certainly that was one of the key things that Malcolm was going to raise in his talk at the Audubon Auditorium on the day that he was assassinated in 1965.
65.
Right. And so I just wanted to just throw that little bit of history out because you're not going to find a lot of that in any place. And I think it's important for students of the movement to understand that history.
Baba Kabaila, you
Yes,
just blew my mind right there. I want to make sure I understood you correctly, and I want to make sure that those people watching didn't miss what you said.
yes,
So you said that Brother Karenga and a number of brothers, but this including Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, who were going to create the Black Panther Party. This is before they created the Black Panther Party, correct?
yeah.
And that they were working together, correct?
Like I said, Huey was the
Wow.
North chair of the AAA, and Karenga was the Southern chair, and they would fly back and forth up and down the coast to meet with each other to plan and plan strategy and work together. And we had a very good working relationship because remember when the Black Panther Party was formed, it was called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. It was only later when Eldridge came in that they began to get into the Marxist study and that. We had a very good relationship with Huey. It was only when Huey went into jail and Eldridge took over that we started having some difficulties.
I appreciate that point because I have never, and I'm not going to say I'm a scholar of us. So let me start with that. But I
Yeah.
have never in my readings on the Black Power movement, cultural nationalism in the 60s, come across that particular history that they were actually cool at one and worked together at one point. It was always presented that they were almost rival organizations, So
Um,
that's important.
no, in fact, we each of us had a office. We started an organization here in Los Angeles called the Black Congress. And the Black Congress had 60 community organizations in it, 60.
Mm.
And your teacher from Cornell, he played a big part in that. Um,
Wow.
yeah, he played a big part in that. And out of that, we developed the concept called operational unity, meaning unity and diversity, that regardless of whatever differences we may have, that we can still come together under this idea and concept of operational unity. In other words, focus on those things that we have in common and those things that we have a difference on. We can deal with that in the closet, like Malcolm said. If we
Mm-hmm.
have differences, we deal with that in the closet. But let's come together on those things that we share in common and that we can work on in terms of pursuing our common interests as a people and as a community.
So, Barbara, thank you for that, first and foremost. And I want to follow up by asking, so a lot of people reduce the idea of the power of culture. I don't know, in elementary school, what's culture? Culture is what you eat and what you wear and what you listen to. There's a simplified idea of culture, but cultural nationalism plays a very important part in our
Exactly.
history. Could you please just give people a brief to help them understand when cultural nationalists say culture, what do you mean by culture and what does it encompass?
I'm going to say culture is essentially, for us, it's essentially the values that we adopt. And it's our history, it's our values, our history, and the way in which we do things that distinguish us from other people. Okay, the way we walk, the way we talk, um, the food we eat. Those are concrete things that we can look at. But it's also more than that. It's our value system. The fact that we say that we are the most spiritual people on the planet. That is a defining characteristic of us as a people, and it's a cultural characteristic. Okay, wherever you go, I don't care whether it's Brazil or Haiti or Guyana, uh, in Europe, African people are a spiritual people. That's who we are. That's part of our essence. And slavery, or the transatlantic slave trade, was not able to take that away from us. That's an identifying characteristic. The way we walk, you know, I it was funny when I was watching the TV last week when this incident happened in uh, at Brown University, and they showed the guy walking. I said, "Phew, that is not a brother, because brothers don't walk like that." So
Right.
those are defining characteristics that define us as a people. The way we talk, even our language, the language, the way we utilize English, the syntax we use, it has an African character to it. That's why they did a study of Ebonics, because there was a unique way in which we utilize language. And so those are essential characteristics that define us as a people. Okay.
Yes, sir. And it seems to me, Barbara, also that if our people, if part of our culture was we not the sisters come up like we don't date or take brothers serious that ain't reading,
Right.
that are not working, contributing, or have a plan, or right, that would change and brothers came up like, oh, the sisters gotta be able in other words, aspirational things, positive, healthy, wholesome things, that we're going to defend our families.
That's
That
right.
we're going. Would that not change almost overnight the way we get down in this country and around the world?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, those are those are essential characteristics that you don't really change in a people. The values, your values are who you are. That's who you are, regardless of what your circumstances are, regardless of how they try to. Those of us who are familiar with the movie Roots, no matter how much they try to change us into Toby, we still maintain that basic African character and characteristic, and we still maintain a certain identification with African culture, Africa as our home. So we maintain that. They can't whip that out of us. And that's why I in this talk I wanted to focus on Kwanzaa as a process, and a way in which we decolonize our minds, because that was the intent. Ever since they came to Africa and started bringing us here during the African slave trade, I should say the transatlantic slave trade, that it was a method that they used to try to take our Africanness away from us. But in fact, we still maintain that basic character, that basic sense of identity. And Kunta Kinte, they could not take away his basic and fundamental identity, no matter how many toes they tried to chop off or how they tried to change him. You see?
Yes, sir. It's interesting. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking back when I was much younger man. I'm gonna say my teens and up to maybe my early 20s. I was reading stuff about the US organization, and every time I saw it, they said the United Slaves, and I was like, that's a weird name to call. That doesn't make sense. It wasn't until later that I found out that was part of the anti-us propaganda.
FBI.
That it was us versus them, not United Slaves. You
Yeah,
know,
that was COINTEL program put that
yes,
out.
sir. And also, another thing I found out going back 30, 40 years was that people commonly thought Kwanzaa was like the pro-black African-centered Christmas. Would you say that's true or false? And could you elaborate on your answer?
Right. No, of course that's not true at all. And again, it's important that we distinguish Kwanzaa as an African cultural holiday that focus on is based on African values. The values, actually, Kwanzaa was actually promoted, and Karenga will always say this, that Kwanzaa, he developed Kwanzaa as a means of promoting the seven principles, the seven. Hold one moment, please.
Yes, sir. So, you good, Baba?
I'm sorry. I should explain. I'm actually in a rehab hospital here in California as a result of COVID related illness I had, and so if there's noise in the background, that's why. But I'll be out of here next week. But
Yes.
in
Thanks.
any
Yes,
event,
sir.
in answer to your question, uh, and please repeat your question again for me.
Yes, sir. So I it's almost phrasing it as a true false.
Okay.
Kwanzaa is a pro-black, African-centered Christmas. Is that true or false? And whatever your answer is, could you elaborate for those watching?
Exactly. Yes. So definitely, Kwanzaa is not a Black Christmas, and I don't want to say necessarily that it's an alternative to Christmas, because most of the people who celebrate Kwanzaa are Christians, and many of them celebrate Christmas at the same time that they celebrate Kwanzaa, because they don't see there's no one doesn't take away from the other necessarily. Okay, Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday, and Christmas is a religious holiday. Um, uh, we are not a religious organization, and so the ideology that Kwanzaa grew out of, called Kawaida, is not a religious ideology. It's a Pan-Africanist, cultural nationalist ideology that emphasizes values. It puts the emphasis on values. And so that's where we are. And that's how we distinguish ourselves from Christmas, which is a religious holiday, and pushes that. But um, at the same time, the way that Kwanzaa uh, developed, and those who know the history, and if you want to, I didn't want to go too much into the particulars of Kwanzaa. I want to talk about Kwanzaa as a restorative. Um, uh,
Let's
uh,
go with it, Baba. Let's go right there. Let's pick it up
right.
right there.
Yeah.
One of the things that amazed me was the topic you chose.
Yes,
You
sir.
said that you're saying that Kwanzaa is not just a celebratory piece, that it is an actual pathway to our decolonization. I had never kind of heard it framed that way. So please take it away, Baba. Take us. Let us understand what you mean.
Well, because it's important, and I appreciate what you said. It's important that we don't let Kwanzaa just become. It's not just a holiday that we celebrate at the end of the year, 7 days. It's a movement, and many people are in the process of transforming Kwanzaa into a year-round event, because what we want to do, we want to institutionalize Kwanzaa. And as brother Agyei has said earlier, Kwanzaa, the last reports that we had, Kwanzaa, and this is, I'm not sure which newspaper, it was the Wall Street Journal, one of the major newspapers, estimated that approximately 60 million people around the world celebrate Kwanzaa, and that's no small feat. Let me start. Let me start here by how Kwanzaa started, because it's a very unique history. Kwanzaa started in 1966, and at the end of the year, and one of the children in the organization, small children, one of the small children in the organization, raised the question, uh, everybody else at school is celebrating some holiday. You know, the Jews got Hanukkah and
Mm.
Christians got Christmas, but we don't have nothing to celebrate. And so, and that was the impetus for doing the necessary study around how we develop a holiday for especially for our children. That was the motivating and the impetus for doing the necessary study for the holiday and putting the holiday together. And so it was a group in the organization that did various research, but Karenga remained the authoritative person in terms of putting everything together. And that's why we say that he's the creator. But in fact, it was the child who provided the impetus for developing this holiday for them, so that they have something that they can celebrate. And people say, well, why would you celebrate a holiday in the middle of winter, and why don't you do it in summer? It's because we want to give our children an alternative that they can celebrate, since we're not religious. Um, we want to give them a cultural expression that they can feel a part of and be proud of, at the same time that everybody else is celebrating their holidays around the same time. And so that was the impetus for us, bringing the holiday forward. But I want to just start by how we started in a one-bedroom apartment, 150 people, in 1966. This is when we had the first celebration. 150 people. Now, keep this in mind. People talk about, we don't have the ability or the capacity to organize. We don't have the ability to instill ideas in our people, to give them an ideology, to give them something that they can hold on to as a community. So think of this. This is very important, especially for our young people. 150 people in 1966 started out celebrating Kwanzaa. The next year, in 1967, that's when I joined the organization in 1967. And there was a sister who came down, and we call her Queen Mother Makini. She came down from Wose Church up in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco area. And she came down and celebrated with us. And she immediately left the Kwanzaa celebration, and she went to 20 different countries. 20 different countries. She went on a tour herself, a self a self-back tour. She didn't ask anybody for help or anything. She went on a self-back tour to 20 different countries. I don't know how long it took her to complete this, but she took the message of Kwanzaa to 20 different countries when she left the Kwanzaa celebration in 1967. And of course, and like and when I joined in 1967, I had just come to California from back east, and I was at City College, and almost immediately I was elected vice chair of the Black Student Union, and so I was also asked to, because of that, I was asked to be over the student affairs committee for the organization. And so it was through our student affairs committee that we first brought Kwanzaa into the school system, from the elementary, junior high, high school, and college level. We developed a plan, and all of our people who were in these various groups, took Kwanzaa into the school system. But essentially, I just wanted to say, this is how we built a movement. Okay, we built a movement because we had that organizational capacity. When you come into the US organization, you had to at least go to one community meeting and bring back information about what they were doing, what their program was, how we can work with them, and that kind of thing. And the outgrowth of that was how we formed a larger organization called the Black Congress, which I mentioned earlier, which was made up of 60 organizations from the community. And we developed it based on the concept of operational unity. So this is how you build a movement. And this was our lessons. This was our training and discipline to go out, be a part of organizations, come back with a plan, and take that plan in terms of how we build relationships with that organization and how we can enhance the organizations in the community, and how also they can work with us and help us to build also in terms of pushing our program. I can't hear you, brother.
That last part of what you said is interesting as well, because again, the US organization has been really not spoken well of by, certainly by white mainstream media. It was always sold that it was kind of isolationist, that it wasn't involved in the community. And now you're telling us no, it's quite the opposite. If you're working with 60 community organizations and this whole idea of operational unity, that turns that whole theory on its head. So that's important. Now,
Yeah.
Baba, we now want you to get right to it. You're telling us straight up, if you think that this is just about lighting the candles and reciting the Nguzo Saba, that's part of it. But you're saying this is an actual pathway to our liberation, to our decolonization. Could you please help us understand that? That's so important.
Thank you, brother Agyei. And this is, I think, the most important part that we can really speak to at this particular time, because we don't want Kwanzaa just to become a light candle, a candle lighting opportunity. Of course, all of those things have significant meaning. Excuse me. All of those things have significant meaning. Every part of every ritual that we do as a part of Kwanzaa has particular meaning. But it's not just that. It's not just giving libation. It's not just drinking from the tambiko, the tambiko cup. It's not just that. It's a matter of bringing together community. And it's about, and this is what I want us to start focusing on. It's about restoring our history and restoring our identity as a people and as a community, coming together to work together towards common goals and common aspirations. Okay? It's about building a future for our people. This is what, excuse me, Kwanzaa is about. And if it's not about that, then it's not about anything. Okay? It's about community, it's about values, and it's about our history and how we build our future for our children and our grandchildren. And we must focus on that now. Okay? And all of the negative stuff that people have been talking about and saying, you can't let that into your head, because it's meant to keep you decolonized. It's meant to colonize you and continue the colonization. And this is what we're saying, is that Kwanzaa is an opportunity. It's an institution for decolonization, to take what the and I don't want to take what the people who have dominated us have put in our head for the last 400 or 500 years. We have to take that out. We have to negate all of that. I used to think studying Locke and Berkeley and Socrates and Plato, I used to think that was heavy, until I learned that these people were imposters. They stole. And George Jackson tells you the whole story of how they stole our legacy. They stole from us. We had mathematics. Look, I just learned this like 2 weeks ago, that the Igbo, not the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Yoruba have had a system for thousands of years. It's a binary system, the same system that is used for the computers, the zero and the ones. They had this system thousands of years ago. Okay? But this is history that we don't know, that they kept from us. So we have to do the study to investigate our history, to know who we were as a people. When you look at we talk about the Industrial Revolution. Check out all of the people, and we learn this online. You can learn this online. You can just scroll through your phone and learn these. But when you look at all of the inventions that Blacks have done over the years, we were the ones who were the impetus for the Industrial Revolution. We developed so many things, but we weren't able to take the patents. We weren't able to get the patents, for the things that we invented, and somebody would take it from us, like the light bulb and all. They took all of that from us, okay? And just like the brother, what was it? The brother who worked with the guy who did the I think it was the heart transplant or whatever. They took all of those things from us, but we were the ones that did that. And how do a people who 100 years, not even 100 years, 50, 75 years ago were slaves and couldn't read, were not allowed to read, how do they come in 50 years and be able to invent all of these things? Okay, there's something different. And that's our cultural orientation. That's who we are. Those are the values that are inherent in us. And we learn from studying our own spirituality, from studying Ma'at, that those things are built into us. Our melanin, we talk about our melanin. Who knows that our melanin is an electromagnetic field, and energy passes through it, passes through us. Okay, so we have a cosmic connection, and we didn't even know it. We have never explored it, the extent to which we have a cosmic connection. The Dogon people talk about it. The Dogon people in Africa, they knew where the star system was way long before the astrologers could even find Sirius B and Sirius A, Sirius C. They knew long time ago about the star system, and it's unidentifiable with the naked eye. So it was amazing how they would know, but it's because we have this cosmic connection. And this is something else that we need to explore in terms of our history and our biological makeup, everything. So we have to look at those things ourselves. And this is why, again, it's important, why Kwanzaa is important, because Kwanzaa refocuses us as a restorative project, as a project that has the potential and possibility of lifting us out of the conditions that we are in as a people, making us and getting us to recognize our productive potential, our productive capacity as a people, and to create our own history, to create progress, to create our future for our children. We have that capacity, and we don't give that to anyone else. That is ours alone to have and to give to our children. We have that capacity. And so, and this is something I had mentioned to you, brother, a guy, before we started, in my family, and I say my ex-wife, but I still love her dearly, because even though we may have had some past differences, those are minor, but we come together. We come together on raising our daughter and raising our granddaughter. Okay, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Whatever differences we may have had in the past, that doesn't matter, because what matters is that we build for our future. And so in our family, we started a rites of passage program. And it was mainly, inspired by my ex-wife, Laini. And so as a result, we've, over the past 6 weeks, not 6 weeks, it's been more than that, but every other week for the past couple of months, we've had a rites of passage meeting with the young ladies in our family, and because they don't get this learning in school, we felt that we had to do it within our family. And one of our aunties in the family, she has a background in structure, building structures and whatnot, and she put together some programs for us that, I mean, I was amazed. And so she put together some programs, for us in terms of introducing the whole rites of passage in the various areas that were necessary for development, for personal development, for educational development, for value orientation, understanding the difference between, this is one of the questions that came out and we've had a lot of discussion on, was the difference between Afrocentrism and Eurocentrism. And so that was a very important difference, because there's some interracial relationships as in family also. So it's important to give those kind of distinctions in there. And but it gave the opportunity to impart to the children a sense of their own identity and prepare them for what they're going to come across when they graduate from high school and go on to college. I can't hear you, brother. Agyei.
We have it's Agyei, Baba Agyei.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We have a lot of comments bubbling. We have my lovely queen. She's thanking people for coming out and giving the greetings. We have some sisters in the chat are kind of saying, "Hey, how you doing, so? How you doing?" So that's good. As Reclaim Your Potential has been saying throughout the broadcast, please bring Baba back. Let me bring her comment up. She says that please invite my dear brother Kabaila back because he has 60 plus years of information that can be transformative. And that word transformative is very key. Yes, absolutely. She values you, brother, and we do as well. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. We're going to definitely
Yes.
bring you back.
Yes.
And she actually, before you talked about the rites of passage, she wrote this. I humbly suggest you invite him back to talk about the rites of passage that he created, has developed for our children. So yeah, that's perfect timing right there. Yes, indeed. So let me ask you this as well. I have a brother who I do a monthly broadcast with, a really strong younger brother, and he's really well versed. He's written a book, and he's doing some good things. He believes that the Nguzo Saba was partially inspired by the Honorable Marcus Garvey's UNIA in their Constitution and bylaws. He says there's a section where they talk about certain things, and he thinks, he doesn't know, but he said he suspects that when Brother Karenga and the other brothers and sisters were putting the Nguzo Saba together, that they may have been inspired by what Brother Garvey wrote in his documents. Do you know if that's true or not, or can you speak to that? Can't hear you. Hold on, Baba. Could You have to unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now? Okay, right. It's interesting that you raised that question, because there are a couple of people in the community, and there's one brother here in Los Angeles, especially. I'm not going to call his name, but he tried to say uh, that Malcolm actually developed the seven principles, and whether he did or not, it really doesn't matter, because it was through the US organization that the seven principles became instituted into the community. Okay, and so and even though like we talked about in the beginning, I'm not going to go into the whole thing about Karenga and his situation, but at the same time, I'm not going to take away his body of work. Okay, we may have some differences, and that's okay, but I still give him credit for his body of work. I still credit him for his intellectual contribution to the movement. You know, very few people could have written the book that he did on Ma'at. And I know he's working on a book on Malcolm now. But um, that's one thing that I learned from being in the US organization, is that you recognize people for what they do, for their body of work, and if they have some personal issues, then deal with that on the side. And that's the whole thing about operational unity also. Operational unity says, look, let's come together on those things that we share in common, because the little differences that we have, those are minor in comparison to the major contradictions that we have with the system. Okay, we got to deal with combating the escalation of Nazism in this country. We have to deal with suppression of people of color in this country. We have to deal with expelling people from Haiti and Ethiopia and other parts of the African world, expelling them back to their countries without authorization, without any kind of validation. Okay, and so those are the things that we have to come together and deal with around. Okay, so if some of us have some differences, look, like Malcolm said, we deal with those in the closet. Okay, we can go in the closet and deal with those issues. But when we come out here as a united front, and that's the way we're gonna deal. All right. And so I just want to come back to the point that you know, that Kwanzaa is a restorative institution. It's an institution that can lead us to decolonize our minds. Look at how many people, 60 million people, are now practicing a holiday and a movement. They are engaged in a movement designed to decolonize their minds from over 500 years, imposed on us by an evildoer, by a pound of pus who came to take us out of existence, who burned down our cities. They burned down 129 cities that we built up after 400 or 500 years of slavery. They burned our cities down. Some of them they poured lakes over, and they're in the lake swimming right now. These are the kind of people that we have to deal with. And this is, excuse me, this is what we have to deal with. And that's why it's important that we have this institution to decolonize our minds so that we can deal together, come together and deal with this enemy of our culture, an enemy of our history, and an enemy of our future, our children's future. This is our children's future we're talking about. We're not just talking about today. We're talking about our children and our grandchildren's future. And if we don't come together around those things that we share in common, then we are doomed to become a footnote in history, like so many other people are. We don't
Yeah.
want to become. We refuse to become a footnote uh, and let these people kill us and then put our head on a nickel like we were nothing. Okay, they killed a Native American and then put their head on a nickel. What? Are you serious? Okay, these are the kind of people that we're dealing with, and so we don't have the luxury. We don't have the luxury of uh, uh, of of resting and laying low. I don't have the luxury of just laying in this bed and doing nothing. um, I remain just as active now as I was before I came to this rehab center. Okay, because it's very important, and I'll be doing this until the day that I become an ancestor. All
Yes,
right,
sir. You get me hyped up, Baba.
it's
Hey, yes, sir.
it's
That's
real, it's
right.
real, it's real, and
Yes, sir.
and I also would like to, and because I know you're going go to the National Black Council of Elders in a minute, but I also want to focus on a couple of things, and that is building institutions. Okay, building institutions. Like we talked about earlier, the rites of passage is an institution and the way that we sustain Kwanzaa. Okay, building. Excuse me for a moment. What's that? Okay, and so if there's any background noise, just let me know. But
Yes, sir.
the I was talking about sustaining Kwanzaa by building institutions, the rites of passage, the um, uh, uh, the National Black Council of Elders, having uh, naming ceremonies, having African weddings instead of these white gown and tuxedo weddings. Okay, and people talk about, well, them cultural nationalists, they just about wearing African clothes. No, it ain't about wearing no African clothes. Look at what Traore has done in Burkina Faso. He took them wigs off of the attorneys' heads and made them wear African outfits. But what is that about? It's about the fact that it gives them a chance. Those who are fashionistas, those who are um, uh, creative people in terms of their not only their fashion, but also in terms of building industry. You know, and my Marxist and socialist friends always talk about the productive process. And so the productive process says that we have control of the means of production. And so why are we wearing somebody else's clothes, something that they produce? Okay? It's not about just wearing African clothes. It's about wearing our clothes. It's about us having control over that particular industry. Okay? That's what it's about. And it's about taking pride in ourselves. You know, we started off wearing the natural, and then 10 years later, the sisters in Brazil started wearing naturals. The African sisters in Brazil started wearing naturals. So it's building those kinds of movements and instilling that kind of pride in our history and in our people wherever we are. Okay, and so also I talked about the naming ceremony. We talked about baby whispers. We talked about having our own celebration of life ceremonies where we talk about transition, because those who make transition are still a part of our community. They're not dead. They don't dead. Their spirit still lives in us. I commune. My mother and father passed away in 1995. I commune with them every day because they are still ancestors. Okay, they are ancestors in our community, and our ancestors are a part of our community. It doesn't matter whether they're recent or ancient ancestors; they're still a part of our community, and we still learn and commune with them. Okay, and so we must take those things to heart. And so having those kinds of institutions, building those kinds of institutions, whether it be during the Kwanzaa season, whether it be during the Jubilee season in is it July when they have the Jubilee, Brother Agyei? Can't hear you.
Thought it was June, but I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah, Juneteenth. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on Juneteenth and Kwanzaa, we should have these ceremonies. Okay, African wedding ceremony. Why are we still having white gown and tuxedo wedding ceremonies? Do you know some weddings cost 10, 20, $50,000, and we're giving that money to somebody else outside of our community? Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And those people who talk about, oh, y'all just about wearing African. No, It's about controlling our productive capacity and controlling the productive process in our own community. Look at, and like I said, look at what Traore did in Burkina Faso. Took the wigs off of those lawyers' heads. And then the school children, he put them in African outfits instead of them little European plaid outfits that look ugly on them, And now they have, some beautiful African textile outfits that they can wear and be proud of. Okay? And so it's not just about the clothing, it's about having pride in ourselves and having pride in our history and taking that history and turning it into something that's going to be productive for our flourishing in the future.
Bob, I wanted to add on to a lot of what you've been saying. Again, those who just came in, we're having a discussion with Baba, who's Chief Mwalimu Kabaila, also known as Kabaila Simba, around Kwanzaa, but looking at Kwanzaa not just as the cultural sort of celebration that comes after Christmas, but as an institution that if we get the values right and we change our priorities, that this can actually be a path to our actual liberation and or decolonization. So that's very important. I want to add, as a student of the Black Power movement, a lot of the mainstream writers, they raise this issue to devalue the movement, to say, what did it produce? Bunch of people wearing all black, wearing African clothes, changing their, but they didn't produce nothing. And I want to counter that by saying, I can name two things that exist to this day that were not here and wouldn't have been here without the Black Power movement. One of them I am a complete recipient of, beneficiary of, and fought for when I was at college. Black Studies. There was no Black Studies as we know it today. I spoke to an elder named Ngoma, and he told me, brother, I was in Vietnam. I was getting books from people back home from the bookstores. He said there was no Black Studies, and a lot of young kids don't understand when they go off to college, that was not there. That your generation of activists put that there by demanding on white college campuses and black that we have classes to learn about our culture, and not just to learn about it, but the assignment was to learn about it and then go into the communities and form those type of linkages and actually liberate ourselves with this knowledge. So that's one thing. But the second thing, dear brother, is Kwanzaa. We didn't have a black, I don't know if people, when people didn't work to put something there, but they benefit from it, there's a tendency to take it for granted. Kids do this all the time. The parent gets the expensive plates and gets all this stuff. The kid didn't put it there. So they don't tend to, they drop it. They don't tend to appreciate somebody put that there.
Yes.
And with Kwanzaa, there was no black holiday. There was no black cultural celebration of that magnitude until these young, fiery, uncompromising Pan-African nationalist activists, young people, I might add, made that part of the agenda through the US organization. So for those who think that Black Power is just a bunch of yap, I need to correct you on that. It produced two things that are alive and well to this day, although they are also both under attack for the very reasons I'm talking about, because they're so important. That's why the conservatives or ultra conservatives are attacking Black Studies. That's why people are constantly lambasting us and cultural nationalism and Kwanzaa. But these things, they're both institutions, and we are that much better off for having them. So I just wanted to add that, Baba. And I wanted to ask also, did you want to add on to that? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, I did. Because you made me think about we talked about the Black Congress, and within the Black Congress, we had an organization that gave advice mainly to young brothers, excuse me, in terms of how we avoid going into the Vietnam War. Okay, and so I was actually in college on and I had 16 units. I had a full program, and I got a letter in the mail from the induction board, and they changed my classification from 2S, which was student, to 1A, which means that you had to go. And so before I knew it, they had called me in. I thought it was for an interview. So I went to this place downtown LA, and man, they was giving out uniforms and orders in terms of where to report. And so, and so I said, "Oh no, man, they got me caught up in something here." And so I remember the brother who trained us. His name was Levi Kingston, and you know he had a system devised where you know if they called you, you know they could get you out of the country or anything like that. So I said, man, I'm gonna have to call Levi. So anyway, so they had me in line. So at first I tried to tell the guy I had flat feet. They said, no, that ain't gonna work, son. He said, move along in the line. And so and I don't know how this happened, brother Agyei, but right away they were fixing to give me a uniform. They give you a uniform, a blanket, and your orders where to report, right? And I was one of the next ones in line. And I said, I'm gonna have to do something. And right away, I channeled Muhammad Ali. Now I never took time to remember what he said, but like I said, I channeled him and I just started hollering out. I said, I don't have no enemies in Vietnam. I'm not I'm not going over there to fight people who look more like me than the people sending me. I said, all my enemies are in Vermont and Virginia. And I just hollered that out. And the guy said, step over here, sir. And
I bet he did.
yeah, he said, step over here. And he said, you go home. And he said, you'll hear from us in a couple of weeks. So I didn't know what was gonna happen, man. I didn't know if they was gonna come and snatch me up, put me in jail or what, you know. But luckily 2 weeks later, almost to the day, they sent me a thing said I was reclassified 2Y, which meant you never have to go. So I guess they thought I was just crazy or something. They don't want
Hey
this.
man, you would have been crazy to go in certain
Exactly.
respects, depending
No,
on your
I wasn't
politics for
going,
sure.
brother. I mean,
Yeah.
we had some other plans, but the way it worked out, you know, it was great. But I'm just saying, those are the kinds of things that we had available to us. I would have never done that if I hadn't gone to the training sessions that Brother Levi had done for us, because I just didn't know, you know. But he
Right.
trained us in terms of how to think like that and how to think on our feet. Like I said, I never tried to remember what Ali said, but I channeled him, and to this day, I thank him for keeping me alive. You know.
Yes, sir. We all do. We all thank him. Let me ask
Exactly.
you this, Baba Kabaila. So, to help people really understand the power of these principles, I know as a classroom teacher for many years, I can't tell you how many little girls came through Nia, Kuumba,
Right.
Imani. We
Right.
take this for granted now, but they got those names, I'm pretty sure, unless their parents came up speaking Swahili or
Yeah.
came from East Africa or Central Africa. They got those names due to Kwanzaa,
That's
right?
right.
People, I've seen people change their names. They have Umoja in the name. That's coming out
Right.
of Kwanzaa. But could you help people understand Kuji Chagalia? Let's take self-determination. If our people really locked in on what that meant, not just we name ourselves and we define ourselves, but in a political global sense, that we have territory, that we're self-ruling, that we're running into economic enterprise. Like how would that change our behavior, our outcome, if we really embraced this idea of Kuji Chagalia as you see it?
Yes, sir. Good question. Um, and this reverts back uh, to the Marcus Garvey movement. Garvey taught us that you know Africa is our home. And what that means is that it's our political center, okay? It's um, it's our source of identity. It's our cultural base, our cultural foundation. lies in our African identity, and it's our power base. It's our power base, and that's why it's so important that we build the kinds of relationships on the continent that not only sustain us but sustain the Africans too, because they need just as much decolonization as we do, maybe even more. I'm told some of my friends have gone to Ghana to live. They have churches on every corner, every four corners. They got a church, you know, which reflects. And I'm not. This is not an attack on Christianity or religion, but I'm just saying it's a sign of the times. You know, why do you need four churches on every corner? And why are the churches on every corner? Okay, it's a process of colonization. It's a process to keep you colonized. Ghana has more gold than God. Okay, why should they still be owing the IMF or the World Bank? What, really? Okay. In most African countries, many, Uganda, we can name them off: Uganda, Congo, Botswana, Zimbabwe. They got more gold than we could ever imagine. Why would they need, if gold is the basis for the monetary system and the banking system? Why do these countries still need to be borrowing money from the World Bank and the IMF? It's because they still have the colonized mind, and they use the churches to keep them colonized, to keep their mind, to keep them dependent on them. And this started out. I hate to say this. No, I don't hate to say it. But in fact, I hasten to say it. That this started in 325 AD with Constantine at the Nicene Conference, when they codified Christian doctrine, okay, and put the books of the Bible in the Bible. I think, I forgot how many. I think it's 77 out of 80. Yeah, I don't know, but that's where they chose the books that were supposed to be included in the Bible at this Nicene Conference. And then at the same time, and keep this in mind, and I'm gonna come back to your question, Brother Agyei, but keep this in mind. One of the first things they did was to undermine the family, okay, and say that um, uh, extended family, some people say polygamy. I'm not going to use that term. I'm going to say extended family because that's our value orientation. Extended family was a wrong concept, and that you had to be in a monogamous relationship. That's what God wanted, their God, okay? And they imposed that on us. But look at this. The family, the extended family, was the central way of which the culture was transmitted and the values in the culture are transmitted. Okay? The family is the main essential. And it's through the family that community is built. Community was built as a result of the family structure, the communal, the collective family structure, where the value for sharing was emphasized and codified and realized on a daily practice. In the daily practice, it was codified, and so they undermined our system of transmitting our culture and maintaining the conversation, the flow of conversation from family to family, from family to community, from community to community. And this is also where the family and community was the foundation for the political system. Because remember, we had a communal and collective system of exchange of goods and services. It was a communal system, but it was based on this whole concept of sharing, which grew out of the family structure. And so it was no accident that Constantine imposed. And remember, at that time, 325 AD, you know, 3/4 of the world were people of color, where extended family was the basic system of was the basic family structure. But they broke up that system because so that they could impose. And this is another reason why I say that Kwanzaa provides a decolonization tool for us, because we have to use this knowledge to get rid of that idea that they put in us, that monogamy is the only way that we can have a family. Well, something's wrong with that. It's 70%, more than 70% now, are not are in divorce. And why is the first thing a sister says when a brother they say a brother's cheating, and they say, well, I can't stay with him. Okay. But really, come on. Okay. Uh the other thing is that it's against a man. Now this is my philosophy. Okay. And I'm speaking for Kabaila now.
Right
I
now,
think
brother,
that
I ain't gonna be able to keep some of the sisters back now. I'm trying.
that's all right. I can handle I can handle the heat.
Okay.
But I'm just I'm just saying that um, uh, uh, extended family has its value. I'm not saying everyone has to adopt to it, but I'm saying that it does provide a means and a way of transmitting culture, of transmitting values, and of keeping the family intact, and providing a system for shared values. Okay, and those values extend into the community, but they also extend into the economic processes, and they also extend into the political, because the whole question of collectivism and communalism grows out of the value for sharing. Okay, and that's all I'm saying. And you can deny it if you want, but a serious student looking at that, I think, is going to find value in that whole idea, and really look at the history of how this has been used as a means of continuing our colonization.
You know, Bob, I think part of see, I know anytime I'm laughing because I know anytime this comes up, our sister like, I was with you, brother, until because my lovely queen is over here like, I'm gonna put up a little comment. I'm gonna put up a comment right now. I'm all for sharing values, but I'm not for sharing my husband.
Right.
Period. See, I think, Baba, I think when people think of that, they typically think of it's a sexual thing. It's a guy that just has his sexual way with a bunch of women. And they may not be looking at it from the standpoint of a lot of times, I know on the continent, if people went to war and brothers were killed and brothers were a source of hunting or doing whatever, and these brothers come back from the war and this young lady no longer has a husband, he was killed, that a brother with a family would adopt, would bring the woman in. So I think sometimes the context, is different, and we're more westernized. So I think that's part of it. But let me ask you this,
Yes.
because I want to get back to this one thing. So if our people locked in on Kuji Chagalia, so we're going to name ourselves, not just name ourselves, but we're going to develop our own interests, our own political parties, our own idea of our own political interests, our own engineering, not engineering, economic engines for ourselves. How would that change our people's behavior and our outcome? Just to give people an example of the power of the principles.
Right. Self-determination is no accident that the second principle in Kwanzaa, and self-determination is that impetus. It's that motivating factor that gives us the incentive to speak for ourselves,
Mhm.
to name ourselves, to act in our own interest. Okay. And that's what when I talked about the family, I'm talking about what do we do in our own interest? That is the key element here. Self-determination. How do we determine what is best for us? And let's stop and look at it. Are we going to accept our colonizers, those who dominate us, those who oppress us? Are we going to accept their definition of us? Okay, it's just like what we did in our family with the rites of passage. They stopped the DEI movement. We start rites of passage. Okay, we don't start crying about, oh, they cut the DEI out. Please, we can do this ourselves, and we've proved it historically. We can do it ourselves. We were the ones that came out of slavery and became lawyers and doctors and and philosophers. Okay, we were the ones that did that, and that's an act of self-determination because we determine who we are and who we're going to be in this world. We don't let anybody else define us. We define ourselves, and that's who we have to be. That's who we were historically. That's who we were as the Dahomey women were in Africa. They fought. They started out as young girls and were trained every day, and the enemy feared them. They would go against guns and take the enemy's heads because they had self-determination to maintain their culture, to maintain their way of life, to maintain their land. Okay, they were fighting for not only their families but their dignity, their children. That's what self-determination gives us, and it gives us that impetus, that motivation that we need to let us know who we are historically, and to say that we take it upon ourselves to create history for ourselves and for our people. Okay.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm in complete accord with you on that. I think I am a nationalist, Pan-Africanist. I have love for revolutionary nationalism. I got love for the economic nationalism. I got love for cultural nationalism. To me, it doesn't necessarily need to be a separation.
Right. Exactly.
And for me, I changed my name once I knew my baby girl Nubia was going to be born. I changed my name and went on a 30-day fast, man. I wanted to be ready. And I didn't want her to be born with the white man's name. I'm going to say it. It's not politically correct, but I didn't want her. I had to be born with, the names I had, but I wanted her to come into being with an African name. I think it's just as natural as it's just the natural, culturally connected thing to do. Now, I do want to ask this. This is going off the course a little bit, but I want
Right.
people to know that Baba, like most of us, is not one-dimensional. He's involved. He has other interests he's involved in that intersect. I know that you were founder and presiding elder of the National Black Council of Elders. Could you tell us just a little bit briefly more about the organization, what you do there, what it does?
Right. I appreciate that question. And I initiated that as part of this whole movement that I spoke about before in terms of building institutions that we institutionalize. When we talk about Kwanzaa, we have to build institutions. Excuse me. We have to build institutions that reinforce our identity, that also give meaning to our movement, and that allow us to develop and grow as a people and as a community. And so I started out discussing this whole idea of a council of elders with two of my comrades, Sister Amachina and Sister Mawia, and they supported me on it. And then I went to, after discussing with them, I went to two sisters that I was invited to speak back in Wichita, Kansas, before their council of elders, and I was so impressed with Wichita because everything that goes on in the Black community in Wichita comes through and came through the Council of Elders. You know, they had people who were city council people, ministers, people who worked in social work areas, who worked in the prisons, and who people who just had, you know, regular everyday jobs. But everything that happened in that community came through the Council of Elders, and I was just so impressed with their level of organization. So when I thought about, you know, building or starting a council of elders, I consulted with two sisters there in Wichita, Queen Mother Wakila and Queen Mother Maskela, and they got us involved with their council, and they kind of godfathered and guided us in as a national body, and they gave us access to some of their documents and some of the ways that they had, you know, formed themselves and how they became so active in their community. And we actually went on like a 2 year period of organizing the council. And what we wanted to do was to be a national body who could speak on issues that affected us, because, you know, as I saw, I was involved in several national formations. The National Black United Front. We actually started the National Black United Front when several of our organizations were called to give testimony before the church committee in Washington, D.C. Khalid Muhammad was there, Karenga was there, representatives from the Black Panther Party, of course, and a number of other organizations, SNCC, CORE. You know, there were several organizations. And so after we gave testimony, we all kind of met outside, and oh yeah, we went to Khalid Muhammad's hotel room, and it was in his hotel room that we said, hey, you know, we need to have a national organization, a national formation, where we all come together and discuss issues and provide some guidance in terms of how we move on a national level. And so that's exactly where the National Black United Front started, right after that meeting with the church commission, and we all met there in Khalid Muhammad's room, and that's where we started at, right there. You know, so that's another thing that you had raised before about people saying that, you know, we're just organization that wears African clothes. You know, we've been involved in the center. You know, we brought the first conference of ASCAT, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. I remember, I had I was one of the ones that brought the group, not the group, but the place that we met at Southwest College, and that was the first time all of the Black Egyptologists, from John Jackson, Dr. Clark, Dr. Dr. Ben. That was the first time all of them had like met together. John Jackson. It was the first time Dr. Carruthers from Chicago, Andy Thompson from the Chicago Kemetic Institute. It was the first time that all of the Black Egyptologists had met together. And that impetus came from our whole concept of operational unity. So people can talk all the stuff they want. And that's why I say, I don't care what differences me and Karenga may have. At the same time, I appreciate the body of work that the man has done, and he's given significant contribution, and it's wrong and incorrect, and it only supports the FBI and the agencies that are against us when they say that he was an informer and he was just, that's crap, man. And anybody that repeats that, you need to watch who they are, because they're the ones that are probably getting paid,
Yes, sir.
like I said.
That's one of the old school tactics called snitch jacketing.
Exactly. you know
Yeah, man.
Karenga may have some character defaults, yeah, but at the same time, the man has put his work in, so I give him credit for that.
I shade for that. Baba, we're coming to a close. We want to thank you for your time, your tireless effort. Our brother is in rehabilitation center and he's dropping them jewels. He said he's not going to stop that. He's not going to let that get in the way. And I'm laughing because I'm just like that. I'm laughing.
Yeah, if I could add, brother Agyei, in terms of the chieftainship that I have, it was actually given to me by Paramount Chief Heru Amen. He's originally out of the Bay Area, but he lives in the South right now in the Carolinas. But he actually gave me this position, and it's called Bakhalokoe Nation. We don't say tribe, you say Bakhalokoe Nation, and they are located throughout the Southern African area in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and several other areas. But we work with them in terms of, a lot of the work on the continent that we do. And that's another thing too. I like to end with this, that we as African Americans, we were, I'm not going to say that we came here as an accident, but we came here to the West to learn from the West and take back what we learned from the West back to our ancestral land. Okay. And while we say at the same time, for example, Africa may have the gold and the minerals and in-ground assets, but we have the banking experience, we have the finance experience, and so we can utilize that. And so it's about transferring that knowledge, that those systems, transferring that back to our family on the continent. Okay. And so we have that mutual kind of relationship. And that's what we should try to build on. And when we talk about this whole decolonization process, we want to decolonize on that level in terms of sharing the knowledge that each of us have, sharing, the Africans, they stay connected to the culture for the most part. And so we can learn from them on that. But we also have learned from the West in terms of finance and agriculture and other things, banking and whatnot. So we can take that knowledge back to them and transfer that knowledge back to our people so that all of us can grow together as a result of the relationships that we develop.
Yes, sir. You heard what our distinguished elder said, family. He made it plain. He said, we're not here in their colleges and their corporations. We're not here to integrate. We are here to infiltrate.
That's right.
That's what we are here to do. And as long as we're clear on that, oh man, we're not going to the college to be part of their fraternities, part of it. We're there to get what we got to get and come back out and dish it out to the people. Yes, sir. Right on with that.
Like we used to say back in the day, we need to get 2 grades, one to get an A and one to get away.
Yes, I like that. One to get an A and one to get away. Yeah, man. I'm with that, Baba. Listen, we want to thank you for your time. We hope you a speedy recovery. We hope that we will see you again soon because there's a whole lot more that we can build on. And we just don't have enough time. But I'd like to definitely get you back as soon as you are ready to build on some other things. Thank you so much, Baba. And I'm going to stay in touch with you. I'm going to tell Scott we had you on.
Now, I appreciate the invitation, and it's good to finally meet you one-on-one and keep doing what you're doing. Harlem is very important to us in our movement, our history. You know, the Harlem Renaissance was a significant part of our history here and gave so much to us. And so it's very important that we, you know, keep Harlem in our hearts and minds. And I always appreciate being able to share with you and your family, and I hope to be able to share with your queen at some time. Maybe we can
Uh
have a
oh.
discussion.
That's good. That's gonna be interesting.
All right.
But yes, sir. Thank you, Baba. I'm gonna see if I can finally bring this graphic on. There we go. Listen, family, before you leave, we got a brother named Baba Afam. He's in Brooklyn, New York. So for my people watching in New York City, during this holiday, we said we're not supposed to be giving the white man a dime unless because of circumstances we have to. But we're not supposed to be giving him a dime. We're supposed to be supporting our own people to the best of our ability. We got people to write books. Hello? We got people that are designing things, making jewelry, all types of stuff. This brother is a master martial artist. He teaches the works of Dr. Amos Wilson, right? And he also is a master healer. So he does Reiki, he does Qigong, he does massage therapy. So we warriors, man, we got to make sure we're not burning out, family, because this revolution, this liberation movement is not a sprint. It is a marathon. You can't start real fast and then you got no energy to get to the finish line. So this means we have to take care of ourselves, that we may need to de-stress, right? Decompress, relax to make sure that we can get through the work, the very important work that we do. So the brother has a holiday special for those of you in New York City. Scan that QR code with your phone. It'll take you right to that special offer he has. He's offering a lot between now and the 31st of December. Support our brother. He sponsored this particular broadcast, and so we believe in supporting those that support us. And with that said, I want to thank you all for joining us. Baba, get well soon. We'll be speaking to you soon. I'll be checking up on you. And with that said, family, peace and Black power.
And I look forward to coming back, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.